Now, typically, there are other issues which, of course, are troubling Parliament and indeed many citizens. The latest flashpoint between the government and the opposition is over an app, Sanchar Saathi, an app which the government order yesterday said would have to be preloaded on every mobile phone now acquired in India. The government says this was critical to ensure complete cyber security. The opposition hit back, saying that this app preloaded would lead to snooping and was another example of what they call Pegasus 2.0. Today, the Telecom Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia clarified that this app can be disabled and deleted by a user and therefore is not mandatory in that sense. Either way, it has sparked off a fierce debate. Are apps that the government insists must be used also an opportunity for the government to get personal data and violate the right to privacy? That's going to be the crucial debate we'll have today. But first, take a look at the story.
Get ready. Your smartphone is about to get a new companion, the Sanchar Saathi app. The Indian government has directed all phone makers in India to pre-install this app on every new device sold. Companies are also urged to push the app to older phones through software updates. As per the government's directive, phone companies must ensure the app is pre-installed, easily visible and accessible from the very first moment you turn on your device. The mobile manufacturers must ensure the app's functionalities are not disabled or restricted. And there's a tight deadline. 90 days for installation with a compliance report due in 120 days from giants like Apple, Samsung and Vivo. Reuters, citing sources in Apple, said that Apple will not bow to the diktat and will not preload its phones with the app. Apple is said to be planning to convey its concerns directly to New Delhi. The government says that this is about protecting users from telecom fraud, duplicate IMEIs and cyber threats. According to the government, the Sanchar Saathi app allows users to block lost or stolen phones, verify if a device is genuine, and also see all mobile numbers linked to their ID. But there's a catch. The app requires access to camera, call logs, phone status, SMS, and notifications, sparking privacy concerns. Congress and allies slammed the move, calling it a potential snooping tool and warning it could compromise citizens' privacy.
It's a very fine line between fraud is easy to report and we can see everything that every citizen of India is doing on their phone. So that's not how it should work. There should be an effective system to report fraud, and we've discussed this at great lengths on cyber security and this and that, and definitely there's a need for cyber security, but that doesn't mean that it gives you an excuse to go into every citizen's telephone.
The government clarified that the app can be uninstalled. Communications Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia assured users there's no compulsion to keep it.
कोई मैंडेटरी नहीं है. आप अगर रजिस्टर नहीं करना चाहते हो, मतलब कि उदाहरण के तौर पे इस ऐप का उपयोग नहीं करना चाहते हो, तो रजिस्टर मत करो. वो डॉर्मेंट रहेगा. डिलीट करना है तो डिलीट कर लो. पर क्या हो, एक मिनट, पर हर व्यक्ति को देश में नहीं मालूम कि मुझे फ्रॉड से प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए, मुझे चोरी से प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए ये ऐप है. तो हर व्यक्ति तक ये ऐप पहुंचाना हमारी जिम्मेदारी है.
So the question remains, is Sanchar Saathi a smart security buddy or a digital watchdog? Bureau Report, India Today.
Okay, joining me now, before that, are the big questions I want to pose. The Sanchar Saathi diktat of the government. Is it a violation of privacy or not? Is this app going to be a cyber shield against cyber crimes as the government claims? Or will it become a snooping tool? Is this surveillance fear real or imagined? Questions that we'll raise about your and my right to privacy. My first guest is Shashi Shekhar Vempati. He's been former CEO at Prasar Bharati. He's now co-founder of Deep Tech for Bharat. Does a lot of work on AI. Appreciate your joining us, Shashi Shekhar. Tell me, Shashi, at the moment there are two big questions. Do you accept or do you believe, as is being suggested, that this Sanchar Saathi app is essentially going to be used to snoop on people as the opposition claims? Or do you believe that's an exaggerated fear, a misplaced fear, that this app will not be used for snooping but for greater cyber security?
Yeah, I think that's clearly unfounded and exaggerated concerns. If you look at the massive amount of fraud that's happening, digital fraud, using mobile phones, WhatsApp, profiles to trap people, do so-called, digital arrest and so on. I think the situation called for an intervention, and I think the government has taken a meaningful step in popularizing this app. If you look at the Sanchar Saathi website, I think they have made public the statistics so far, staggering numbers in terms of the number of phones fraudulently, the SIM cards that have been blocked, the number of stolen phones that have been found. So in that sense, I think there is a public interest app, and I think the government encouraging the phone manufacturers to pre-install it, I think is a very positive move. And I think the minister has also made it clear that, you can take it out if you don't want it.
With due regard, Mr. Vempati, when I go through the government order that was put out yesterday, it made it very clear that every mobile phone manufacturer would have to preload this app. So the concern is, the moment you preload the app, could the government have access to your data? Will it lead to mass surveillance? Should not the user have the right to install or uninstall an app? Why should the government decide which app is to be used?
Yeah, I think that's clearly an overblown concern, because the permissions of the app definitely don't entail any of those kinds of surveillance access that people are imagining it. The other thing that many of us don't pay attention to is every commercial phone that we buy, be it from Apple, Google, or any of the whole host of Chinese manufacturers. They all come with pre-installed phones, apps with all sorts of pre-installed apps, and some of those apps can't even be removed. So in that sense, I think while we very unwittingly have adopted all of those apps, I think when the government has taken a progressive step to create awareness about cybersecurity and cyber fraud, especially because mobile phones today in India are being used heavily for payments through UPI, for Aadhaar verification and so on. I think it's all the more important to create this awareness. And if someone doesn't want the app, they can take it off their phones. But by making it pre-installed, you're lowering the barrier to adoption, right? Otherwise, most of the time, we're not even aware of what avenues are there for grievance redressal or for filing cyber complaints and so on. I think this kind of lowers that barrier, makes it easily accessible to a lot of people.
So are you saying that it cannot normalize surveillance in the name of cyber security, that it will not become a government tracker of your smartphones, it cannot be used to implant files on your device, and the concern that the government could access personal data on your device? Are you telling me all these concerns are misplaced, exaggerated?
Absolutely. And I think, as far as any legitimate law enforcement access is concerned, I think the government, I'm sure, has enough tools to do that where, the law permits it. I don't think this is that avenue for that. I think this needs to be looked at from the point of view of creating awareness. Just look at the numbers, right? I was looking at some very staggering numbers recently shared on just in Bangalore City, which is perhaps the most tech-savvy city. Hundreds of crores of rupees lost to digital fraud, which speaks very poorly of the average cyber awareness. Even within the class of people who are supposed to be tech savvy, where you probably have the highest penetration of digital services, right? So it's a serious problem. I think we should give it the merit, the attention it merits, rather than hyping up this whole concern around surveillance. Which clearly is over.
One final question, Shashi Shekhar. Shouldn't the government have publicized this initiative first before you put out directives directly to phone manufacturers. It leads to confusions. Many of the concerns could have been avoided if the government was more transparent.
Sure. In fact, if you look at the Prime Minister in his Mann Ki Baat has created awareness on digital arrest more than once. So in that sense, I think clearly there is a need to do more and more of this. The PM has already done it from his end in Mann Ki Baat. Perhaps the telecom ministry has to, create more awareness, maybe through mass media, through print, and so on. As far as diktat is concerned, I'm not aware if a hard diktat was issued. I understand it's more of an advisory, but nevertheless, I think that nothing in India can ever be less of communication. I think we need to do more of communication, especially on issues of this nature, just because of the fact that even the most digital savvy individuals can very easily fall prey to these sorts of cyber frauds.
Okay, let me widen this debate at this moment. Joining me now, Brijesh Singh, Principal Secretary, Government of Maharashtra, someone who's been an advocate for cyber security. Apar Gupta, lawyer and founder, Internet Freedom. NS Nappinai, advocate at the Supreme Court. I appreciate all three of you joining us. You've just heard Apar Gupta, what Shashi Shekhar Vempati has to say. He said the fears are exaggerated. Now, you've been among those who've raised this issue of privacy. Can you tell me whether you believe the fact that the minister is also now saying that the app can be uninstalled? He's even seemingly suggesting it's not mandatory. How do you respond to that? Do you believe this is backtracking, or do you believe that the fears were exaggerated in the first instance?
Thank you so much, Rajdeep, for having me on your show and this debate. I think all of us will benefit from a higher level of clarity if the government itself discloses the full text of the direction, which is now being carried by several people on Twitter. So, unfortunately, even till now, the Department of Telecommunications has not officially released the full text of the directions which have been issued to phone manufacturers under the cybersecurity telecom rules of 2024. This is
Right.
dated, as per my information, November 21st, 2025. So it's been some days since this direction has been issued. Now, secondly, I think so, given this lack of transparency, this secrecy which is there, what we are going by off the record comments and ministerial statements. But what will actually have force and will require compliance will be the text of this direction. And here it becomes important also to go back to the Reuters report, which is also quoting and has sources from the Department of Telecom. Its explainer today actually says that not only will this be rolled out for devices which are manufactured, and I'm quoting now from their article, an industry source with direct knowledge of the situation said software updates would eventually roll out to the app to existing phone users, meaning it could reach more than 735 million people. And it also says that the manufacturers must ensure that users cannot disable or restrict the app's features. Now, this is why I think so. There needs to be transparency. There needs to be a public disclosure of the full text of this notification. Secondly, when we come to the actual substance of these fears, let's take a step back. This is the government requiring your smartphone to have an app pre-installed by the use of a regulatory power. How it has exercised this regulatory power is admittedly not there in the public domain. Now, what is the issue is that the app may be updated over a period of time. Its functionality may be changed over a period of time. We do not know under which law is it clearly doing it, what are the features of the application, and it is being a direct communication between the government and a device manufacturer or a large Silicon Valley corporation. This is why people are agitated. This is why there is a legitimate question which is being posed. Is my privacy being compromised? Even if the app may not gather my photos, my videos, and my texts today and scan my smartphone today, will there be any law preventing that it cannot do so in future?
Okay, let me bring in Brijesh Singh, because Brijesh, I have what appears to be the text of the order. Section 7 seems to make it very clear that this is a directive, which effectively means that you will have to preload this app. There is some confusion over whether you can uninstall it. The minister says you can uninstall it. But either way, the lack of clarity means that there is a sense that people have of a fear, or those at least privacy advocates, that it can violate privacy. Do you believe those are fears that should have been addressed more conclusively before a directive is issued?
Radeep, imagined malice is a bad faith argument. So if you imagine malice, you should give proof for that. And in fact, one should be thankful to the government that it is addressing a problem head on. And for concerns, let me say that government itself is also bound by the Personal Data Protection Act, which requires data minimization and justification for what you are collecting data for, and so on and so forth. Now, if you look at the app functionalities, first of all, it's not compulsory for you to use. It would come pre-installed on your phone, and it's going to do various things. It's going to allow you to block lost of stolen mobile. It's going to allow how many other SIM connections are there on your name. It's going to allow you to verify, device authenticity, and it's going to allow you to report fraud in real time. Today, the problem is that you are not able to report fraud in real time, and that's why you have all these digital arrest to other scams. And there are, crores and 1,000 crores of rupees are lost from innocent citizens. So I feel that it's a welcome step. It's like an antivirus, right? If you don't want to use it, you can simply delete the app or not activate it. If you don't activate it, it's not going to be activated. Secondly, it has very limited functionalities. In fact, after I got a call for this debate, I checked the permissions of the app. It's very limited functionalities and taking very limited information. Secondly, in a democracy, a government functions on trust. And if there is a requirement for any information, there is a procedure mandated by law where there is proportionality, necessity, and transparency. And there's a due process of law.
But with due regard, sir, with due regard, on your last point of trust, you see, as we've seen in the past, there is a fear that government does play the role of big brother. There was snooping during Pegasus. The government may have denied it, but there was enough evidence and more to suggest it had happened. So trust has to be on both sides, right? Government has to earn the trust of citizens. If there are previous, and across the world, this is not just an Indian problem, but it's magnified in India because there is a lack of transparency. That's why when directives like this are issued, there should be greater clarity, Brijesh ji.
Rajdeep, in fact, I handle the Department of Information and Public Relations, and last 1 month I have had many visits from Telecom Department who has been wanting to promote Sanchar Saathi and, tell people about its functionality. So I've had people visiting from that department asking this information to be given in local language to people of Maharashtra. So there have been efforts from the government. I agree that there can be more transparency, there can be more information which can be given, but there have been very clear efforts from the Telecom Department to give information to people.
Nappinai, you're an advocate, Supreme Court. An interesting argument is made that when we install foreign apps, whether they are Chinese, whether they are US apps, there is no outrage. But the moment an Indian government app is preloaded on your mobile phone, there is a sense that something could go dreadfully wrong. Are we misjudging, mistrusting the government way too much? Why not? There are those who are using the Sanchar Saathi app who have said it's very useful in terms of detecting potential cyber fraud or indeed recovering your phones.
Rajdeep, it's very interesting to listen to all the hyper-simplistic arguments that are being put forth. First and foremost, when we are talking about apps from corporate entities, that is clearly on a different footing from a government app. You can move codes for antitrust, you can delete those apps, you can ask for remedies in terms of corporate surveillance, etc. But what we are talking about here is not about statutory rights. We are talking about fundamental rights. And that is something that a government cannot violate, period. The government is not on par with the corporate entities. They stand on a different footing, including with respect to the responsibility to the citizens of India. And that is that they will not violate our fundamental rights. The
No, but is there a possibility, therefore, when a corporate preloads an app, you're saying the right to privacy is not violated, but when the government does so, it is a fundamental violation of your right to privacy?
No, I'm misreading it. What I said is there may be corporate surveillance, but we're not really, you can't equate corporate surveillance with government surveillance. And let me complete what the point I was trying to make, Rajdeep, is this. Don't equate the sensibility or the capability of Sanchar Saathi with forcing it down our throat. The question here is not about what Sanchar Saathi can or cannot do. The question is about whether it can be pre-installed, and that too based on a mandatory direction from the government saying it must be done. There is no logic to it. There is no legal basis to it, and it cannot be constitutionally sustained. That's the point I'm making. And I don't think we should digress from this criticality, given all the inputs that I have heard right now on your show. It's really strange that somebody would say, oh, you have the right to uninstall it. But why should I be forced to have it installed in the first instance? And we are all talking about a pre-installation in a new mobile phone. Let's also take the second instance, which is that you are expected that a software update will also push it onto your phone. So effectively what the directive says is, I must accept a software update or run the risk of breaches or vulnerabilities on my phone, and I first accept the app and then I'm entitled to uninstall it. Why would I be forced to do that? It is my right of choice that I'm talking about, and I, as a citizen, have the right to decide what I want on my private device or not. That
I take
cannot
your
be
point, ma'am.
violated. I think that's the fundamental
Okay,
that needs
you,
to
you
be addressed.
made your point. Do you believe, Brijesh Singh, that there is an argument of an individual's right to privacy here is being violated? The fundamental argument is coming, a right to privacy which has been acknowledged now by the Supreme Court, no less, could be violated, potentially could be violated. We are looking at a worst case scenario. Yes, there are benefits of the app, obviously, but there are fears as well.
Rajiv ji, I feel that first of all, as I said, imagined malice is a bad faith argument. So you need to prove that there is a possibility for this. We cannot just say. So let us technically come in and see. Let's say you can sandbox the app, find out what data it is sending or not. Apart from that, this is like an anti-vaccination argument. But when there are dire situations, you need to come up with some, solutions like this. For example, there's mass vaccination, and same kind of arguments were put forth. Today, cybercrime has become thrice the Indian GDP. It's $10.7 trillion, which is thrice the Indian GDP across the world. And at this time, dire measures are needed, and I think this is a welcome step.
You know, Apar Gupta, when you look at the numbers that the government is throwing up, the government says that already this app has had a huge difference in enabling the government in its war to ensure against cyber crime. They've thrown up numbers saying that since the app was launched in January 2025, it has recovered more than 700,000 lost phones. More than over 20 crore people have used the portal. About 1.4 crore people have downloaded the app. How do you respond to those who are saying that the app so far has shown that has shown results according to the government?
So the first thing we should recognize is that those numbers are not only due to the app, but also due to the website. Sanchar Saathi exists primarily as a website, so it does not even need to be installed on your smartphone for you to report the loss of a mobile or to just avail the other features which are present within it. As an app also, if these numbers exist, then it points as to a high level of adoption and confidence amongst Indians, thereby not requiring this level of coercion. Now, the stated aim, which is of curbing and improving telecom security, according to me, is on its face a legitimate state aim. Nobody is quarreling against. It's the coercion which is being placed on people and the installation of this application, which is being mandatorily enforced on our private smartphone devices.
No, so
This is
you're not
disproportionate.
accepting what Jyotiraditya Scindia said. I quote him again. If you don't want Sanchar Saathi, you can delete it. It is optional. It is our duty to introduce this app to everyone. Keeping it in their devices or not is up to the user.
Mr. Scindia or any other public officials' public statements need to match the legal text of an order which has not yet been transparently made available. This is not about trusting the government. We can trust the government once we have the black ink which is directing this installation to telecom manufacturers to be made public. Why is this not being disclosed to us clearly, Rajdeep? Even the piece of paper which is in front of you and you read from, you sourced that on the basis of somebody circulating it. It's not the government's proactive disclosure. So how is Mr. Scindia's statement matching this direction?
You know, there is obviously therefore some concerns, but in conclusion, NS Nappinai, do you believe therefore that if this app is installed, you are convinced that the act itself of preloading the app by the government is unconstitutional? Am I correct? And a violation of the right to privacy, irrespective of its benefits?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. I think the government should look at a more benevolent or an easier way of ensuring that there is awareness about this facility, which users can avail of if they believe that they need it. To install something without clarity in terms of the kind of data that's being collected, the kind of data that I am being asked to be made to compromise on, considering that the state is also part of the Personal Data Protection Act and owes responsibilities to us, and most importantly, the proportionality of it. I fully understand and I'm conversant with the volume of time that is there. And I'm sorry to say I don't agree with Brijesh ji on what he talks about malice and the owners, etc. Because the issue again is not about distrusting the government. The issue is about the very act of making something mandatory on a platform which is not that of the government, but that of every individual. It's their private property which you're trying to intrude upon. Whatever may be your good intention is inappropriate. Find alternatives which are not intrusive and which are proportionate, and they will be most welcome. You are responsible for protecting us against scams, etc. And we are sure you'll find better alternatives. But please do try. And let us not get carried away and forget the difference between protection and protectionism. And this is clearly protection.
That's an interesting argument. The difference between protection and protectionism. Is the state playing big brother once again, or are we unfairly questioning the motives of the state? Let's leave it there. I appreciate my guest joining us on a major issue of public concern.